Hey guys, welcome back to whatever this is, and on today's episode, I'm going to talk about a game that always makes me think of the long weekend in Canada. As it is the Victoria Day weekend, funny enough, I always think of Resident Evil 2. So, Resident Evil 2 is easily one of my favorite games. I own a stupid amount of copies of this game, and each version is unique and fun. This was the first version I played, so I will forever have a soft spot on it. I love the fact that my old boss gave me this when I left, he gave me this copy for the N64. It is one of my favorite things in my collection. I always said if I were to own one boxed N64, it would just be Resident Evil 2. I don't even care how many copies I have of it. I just really like it that much. Normally, I don't keep the games in here, so what I typically do is I will store my games in universal game cases and just kind of make my own box art and just go from there. These are really good ways to store all your stuff, especially if you want to keep them protected. This is the N64 version right here. I love this version to pieces. First one I played, I love the puzzles of Resident Evil. It's just such a good game. The balance between the puzzle and the action and the horror, they nailed it perfectly. You don't just get one campaign, you get two. There's not much I can think of adding to this video except doing quick points on each version and just talk about my own experiences with Resident Evil 2. So I always think of Resident Evil 2, I think of those great puzzles, the great gameplay, and I also think of my old room where I was on the second floor and you could see fireworks shooting up over the weekend. So I would sit there playing through the game and periodically I'd just look at the window and I could just see a bunch of fireworks going off. It was really cool, especially the first time I beat it because, you know, the train leaves and it's like, we're going to stop Umbrella. And you're like, yeah! And I looked out the window and there's a bunch of fireworks. It was a good time. It's hard ingrained in my brain, but this was my first taste of Resident Evil 2. And I had played it prior. I just couldn't get into it. I don't think I was old enough. And then for whatever reason triggered, I had just picked up Resident Evil Code Veronica on the Dreamcast here, and shortly after that I was a fan. It took this game to make me a fan because we were just so obsessed with the Dreamcast, had to play everything on it. I couldn't get into Resident Evil before, but this one did it. And then when I beat this, because I believe this game came out in like March, I beat this, and then I was trying to pick up Resident Evil 2. I was trying to rent it from Rogers and Blockbuster. Rogers Video and Blockbuster Video. And every time I rented a copy, it was just obliterated. The cutscenes wouldn't load, the game would just crash because the disc was so messed up. And I couldn't play it, and I was just getting upset, and I either read that there was an N64 version, or I had just seen it on the shelf, so I picked it up and rented that version, because I'm like, you know what, the chances of a problem are tiny. Rented it, blasted through it that weekend. Super fantastic game. I'm not gonna lie, I would also speedrun the game with cheat codes, because it's fun. And it's just a good version. It loaded the quickest. Its cutscenes kind of look like Dog Do because they're just like compressed into the ground compared to the beautiful Dreamcast that didn't do that. But it's just such a good version of the game, and it's just remembering how to deal with Rogers and being like, yeah, your game doesn't work, and they would just kind of fight you, but most of the time they were just like, whatever, go pick up something else. You just rented it an hour ago. So thank goodness for that. And then years later, I did finally pick up a Dreamcast version of the game. And I remember picking it up dirt cheap. It was like it was at a flea market. And if I remember correctly, it was buried in with the PS1 stuff for whatever reason. He never priced it. He couldn't remember. And this is before the prices went crazy. He just looked at me and just went, I don't know, it's Resident Evil 20 bucks, I think I paid for it. And he just went, take it. Get out of here. Don't care. And this was a good version. I really like how this one was based off the PC version. So it had a bunch of weird differences and a bunch of art put into the game. And it's a really nice version, especially if you're into the Resident Evil art, like especially before like art books became really big. This has it on the disc. It's really nice. I would recommend checking it out or, you know, looking at a playthrough. I'm sure somebody's put up a video somewhere about it. And then my most favorite version, because I love the GameCube to itty bitty pieces, is the GameCube version. And the GameCube version is based off of the PlayStation 1 version. So it has all the enhancements of the DualShock and stuff like that, but it is the first time nothing is compressed. There was very minor compression on the Dreamcast version, so they're really, really close because compression got a lot better. But when they put it on this version, everything was there. Nothing was compressed. The audio was all fine and dandy, and it is like my favorite version to play. I played it. I unlocked everything. I still have my save on my GameCube, and it is the best version to play, in my opinion. You could argue the Dreamcast version because of the VMU. You could see your health on there, and it was just a good time. What's cool about each version is each of them are wholly unique, as each of them had a different base. Some of them would have things other ones didn't. So at this point, before I wrap up, I'm just going to do a quick rundown on really what the benefits are to each version. N64, they added in a bunch of notes throughout the game that are unique. They're called the EX files. And what they do is they try and tie everything together a little bit better, which is good. It needed it at the time. They are wholly unique to this version, as well as some, if I remember correctly, there's a costume or two. And that's what's good about this one. It also has a pure randomizer. It is the most unique out of all of them because they had to build this one just for the N64. And my goodness, did Angel Studios do a damn fine job on it. Next we come to this version, the Dreamcast. So when it comes to the Dreamcast version, again, it is 2 discs on this one. And there is slight compression. Most of the compression's gone at this point, but also it was nearing the end of the 90s, so compression got a lot better, because I know in Japan this came out much sooner. We took a while to get it, and it was a really good port. Again, it's got your 2 discs, audio's not compressed, and it is based off the PC version. As I was saying, it has the art in there. You can pick costumes, if I remember, basically out of the gate. It's a nice version. It's, again, very different than the other two. Oh, also, my favorite thing about this version, you can change the color of the blood. I don't know, you can pick green or blue. I always change it to blue because it looks so freaking weird. And on to the last version. We've got this version here. The cool part is about the GameCube version, everything is wholly on 1 disc. So both campaigns are just on the 1.5 gig there disc, and you're good to go. 0 compression, audio is uncompressed, like everything looks crispy and clean. Now, what it comes down to at that point is which controller do you prefer? I understand not a lot of people liking the Dreamcast version as controller, but there are new ways to get around that, thankfully. And this version is just the peak of it. It is literally just the PlayStation version, so it's got the battle mode, it's got all the other stuff that was added in. Obviously, it's got analog support. It is a excellent port of Resident Evil 2. You really can't go wrong with any of them if you want to play the classic style. I would say out of nostalgia, for me, I always love this version in particular. But the GameCube one is also really good, but it's usually the one I go to. I go to the N64 version if I just want to play the game and 100% muck around with it. And it is a good time to do that. Each game has cheat codes. I believe this is the only one that has the infinite ammo code, or it's the health code. All of them have the infinite ammo. It is the health is unique to this version, if I remember correctly. And then obviously, if you cannot stand the tank controls, you cannot stand the awkward camera angles, and the kind of terrible dialogue that I love to absolute pieces, just play Resident Evil 2 on the PS4. PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series consoles. I love this version. I clearly bought the collector's edition, so I've got my boy Leon here. I wish the statue was Claire, but that's just me. But anyways, guys, that's it for this week's episode. Hope you learned something out of this one, or just even had a little fun reminiscing on how good Resident Evil 2 was. But anyways, guys, take care. Have a good one.